Some days you're happy, some days you wanna win. Happy it's we win, man, it's them. It's the same place, Murali End. Sri Lanka cricket we go represent. Go tell a friend.
Welcome to Murali End. My name's Mark Machado. Today I'm not happy. Today I do want to vent, and today I definitely need therapy. Sri Lanka have crashed out of their home World Cup. They have lost. I'm going to say it's quite a humiliating defeat to New Zealand at Colombo. It took us a few minutes to get on, mainly because I had to kind of wipe away the tears and figure out what I was going to say. There is so much to get into in today's show. I'm joined by quite an esteemed panel. Former Sri Lanka coach Anton Roux is with us. Estelle Vasu-Devon joins us from the pitch, and my cousin across the pond, Dominic Machado, joins us from. I think you're at home, Dom. Which is probably a good place to be, because I don't think any Sri Lankans want to be seen out in public for the next few weeks. Estelle, we'll come to you first because you're there. What's the atmosphere like there? What's the feeling inside the press box? When did it all feel as if it was going the wrong way?
Well, to start off, I think the vibe outside the ground was fantastic. Like an hour to go for the game, it really felt like, people were really ready for this game. Of course, tickets were sold out about a week ago, and it felt like people were really excited to be there. And Sri Lanka bowled really well, right? Like, you got to say those first 16 overs, you could hear that crowd, and that's what the Premadasa is, right? That thumping of the band, and the crowd really getting into it. I've got to say, like, when Pathum Nissanka was bowled of the first ball, that's probably like the quietest I've heard the crowd in this tournament. And that's probably also considering like the games where we haven't had much of a crowd, right? It just went dead silent. Because I think everybody knows now that it's very unlikely that Sri Lanka get a lot of runs if Pathum or Kusal doesn't fire. So the moment he gets out first ball, I think a lot of people thought, so this is done, right? So it was very, very quiet at that point. And never really recovered. I think very, very optimistic people. I think a lot of marks out here sat and waited until Kamindu was gone. And when Kamindu was gone, people just got up to leave.
Anton, I want to go right back to the beginning of the game, and this Sri Lanka winning the toss and deciding that we're going to be hospitable guests and let New Zealand have a bat first. That's the original sin in all of this, isn't it?
I'm still flabbergasted by that decision. I don't know what the guys must, I can't comment not being at the ground. I haven't seen the wicket myself, but I mean, come on. History tells you that no matter what the occasion, especially on a big game like this, you win the toss, you bat first, you put a score on the board, and you back your bowling, which has been Sri Lanka's strength in this competition, and you back them to defend that target. And that's not hindsight. That's just plain for everyone to see. And it's also, I messaged you guys during the game, and I'm flabbergasted. I'm lost for words. Like, how do you do that? How do you choose to field first and allow opposition to put up a score and put you under the pump straight away?
Tom, the real question I want to ask you is how are you going to explain this to your kids? I mean, it's not just the fact that Sri Lanka are at the World Cup and they've lost, but for me, the thing that really hurts is just the sheer lack of fight. What now we know is a totally brainless decision to let New Zealand have a bat, and then letting them off the hook when they look kind of out of it when they are batting, and let them come back into it. Their last final 5 overs of their innings, and then us basically losing a wicket first ball and kind of shitting the bed and just throwing the whole game away and just seemingly having absolutely no plan after that moment. Can you say something, anything nice about this performance?
I was talking to my dad about this. What are we going to say to my son about what happened? And he was actually, it snowed here this morning, so he was late getting out to school, and he saw that New Zealand was down. I think they had lost 4 wickets by that point. They weren't scoring very fast. It looked good. And I feel really bad for him because he's gaining this frustration, anger syndrome where it's like, I thought they were going to win that game. How did they lose that? And it's going to be very, very hard to explain to him what happened. At the same time, I'm trying to remind myself, if you ask me, and I think I put this out on the internet, what's going to happen and what's going to be the thing that causes Sri Lanka's downfall, it's going to be tactical errors, right, which Anton just kind of laid out, inability to bat beyond Pathum and Kusal, and just being unable to get up and, take a punch and counterpunch. We saw that against Australia, right? And I felt that made me feel good because I thought maybe this is a turnaround where this team can take it on the chin, right? They got it from Head and Mitch Marsh and fought back. But they were on top of both the last 2 games we've played. We've been on top of the opponent, and we've let them get off the mat without throwing the first punch. And that's what's so frustrating, is that you're in a position to win a game, and all you need is fight. You need fight. You need, and I think that, like, we saw that in the power play. That was probably the most frustrating thing. Where was the fight in the power play? I'll let Estelle and Anton, because they have more experience with the Premadasa, talk about it. But you got to go out thinking, you got to say, all right, let's knock out a third of this chase in the power play, and then we can take it deep and win and win the match. But they did not try to do that. Charth looked horribly out of form. I think part of that is he came in to try and up the rate. He was plummeted in last game, important game, and it was tough for him to get going.
Well, I think we need to get into the baton, obviously, but before that, I think we do need to get into the decision to bring Jareth in. I mean, he's lost the captaincy in Pakistan, which was in November. That's not for a playing reason. Obviously, it's Sri Lanka cricket. So, obviously, politics comes into play for around that reason, and we don't need to go into why that happened, but it is what it is. We're right now in a must-win game for the World Cup to keep our hopes alive. There's kind of the only question for me waking up this morning was, will Camel retain his place and will KJP come back in? And then suddenly you look at the team sheet and actually they've changed the top of the order and to accommodate Charith Sri Lanka. I just want to know what you think the conversation would have been, Anton, around bringing him into the side, because for me it just seems like that just what a strange day to decide to bring him in from the cold, basically.
I think external pressure, and to be even more brutally honest, I think the remarks of Sanga and Angie as commentators would have played a huge role in that decision as well. At the end of the day, I can see, I can understand why they did it. I can understand why they brought in a guy like Charith. That doesn't mean I agree with it. I think it places a hell of a lot of pressure on a guy like Charith to come in and perform, especially on a wicket that is not conducive to stroke play. So, like, what role is he actually going to play? I thought he bowled pretty well, to be honest. But yeah, I think it's just like we've said in the previous podcast. I mean, it's not the time and place to make a change like that. So yeah, just a little bit frustrating to see, and especially when you're chasing and you're behind the game. Like, there's not a lot of guys in world cricket who's going to get the team across the line, right? Let alone the Sri Lankans, who've got a few shortcomings, as we all know, once that top order doesn't get runs. So I think they were behind the 8 ball from the toss going forwards, and I feel for the team, of course. And I feel for guys like Charith who come in, because he's basically, he's got nothing to lose in terms of, it's his first game, but I think he's got a huge mountain to climb to be successful on a wicket like that, because it takes time to get used to those conditions. Yes, you can say he's played on those conditions for so many years, but this is a World Cup. It's a tournament. Every tournament's got a different rhythm. Every tournament's got a different beast that you've got to try and overcome. Every tournament's got a different opposition that you've got to, get used to, whatever the case may be. And you could just see that he was a little bit behind the 8 ball from the get-go, So I feel for him. I really do feel for him. But I mean, what are you going to say? Sorry, I don't want to play. Thanks for picking me, but I'm not going to play. Like, of course you're going to play. Of course you're going to strap up and go out there. But yeah, there's a few things that didn't make sense today, and I think that at the end of the day, we were outsmarted, outplayed in all facets of the game, and it showed in the result.
Estelle,
Yeah, just to add something. Yeah, I just want to add a couple of things to what Anton said. Number one, the picking of Charit. I think we have to accept that he has not been in any kind of touch, right? Like people are look. I think when the team was named, when the 11 was named, a lot of people were happy with that selection because I think a lot of us wanted to see him at 3 because he's had success at 3. But you have to actually take into account the difference in where he was when he batted at 3. Was that in 2021 under Mickey Arthur, where he batted at 3 and he gave Sri Lanka those starts at 3 and he got runs in the power play, versus what he's done since then. He's batted at 5 mostly, right? And the kind of form he's coming into this game with, as Anton said, this is not the type of pitch where you come and you just start like hitting every delivery, right? Which is kind of the role he played in that tournament when he did bat at 3. He would come in, be like the enforcer, he'd get a few boundaries in the power play, get Sri Lanka off to a good start. That's one thing. And the second thing is like talking about selections, right? And how we went from Kamil to then KJP to Kamil and now Charit. It feels like, and I know Anton spoke about this in one of the previous episodes, it feels like a lot of decisions are made based on outside noise. And I would say winning the toss and bowling first here was also something like that, because Sri Lanka lost to Zimbabwe in that last game that they played at RPS. They suddenly decide, oh, chasing is not that hard here. But what they fail to recognize is, in that game, how hard did Zimbabwe go in that power play? They went really hard. They knew they had to get the runs. They had to be ahead of the game at the end of those first 6 to 10 overs so that they could be comfortable in the last 10 to chase that 170 something down, right? And you have to look at that game as kind of an outlier because that was second highest chase at RPS, 178. So you're not going to be chasing high. Like, it's very unlikely that you're going to chase high totals here, particularly given what we've seen from the track in this tournament, right? It's not like we're playing here for the first time or we've had high scoring games here in the last week or couple of weeks. Nothing that's gone on would suggest that chasing is easier, right? And as Anton said, like, high pressure game, your batting has let you down in every game barring that Australia game. And then you decide that, no, you want to chase in this. So it feels like a lot of the decisions are being influenced from outside noise. And like I've said so many times before, there is no clarity and there is no like belief in the decisions that they're making. That's why it keeps changing, right? Based on what somebody else is saying.
Yeah, I think just to jump on what Estelle's saying there, like if that was part of Sri Lanka's DNA going into this tournament, saying, you know what, we're going to find a way to win games at Premadasa chasing, and we're going to do it this way, you know, hammering the power play, extending the batting lineup, etc., 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 so that if it comes down to these crunch games and we end up chasing, actually we're made for this because we've won the toss before in a few games and we've decided to field so we can put us. But that's not the way that we've gone about our cricket, right? So Sri Lanka has always shown that in majority, like out of 10 games at the Premadasa, I would say 8, maybe 9 times out of 10, you'll win the toss, you'll bat first, and you end up winning the game. Now, yes, that one game against Zimbabwe, that's an outlier, right? And that's not the way that that Sri Lanka has built their team around winning games. So it is beyond me. It really is beyond me to think in the game that's going to keep you in the tournament, we get gifted the toss and we decide to field. I just don't understand it. I don't understand it.
Can I was going to add one thing here that I think is worth noting is that we're terrible. We have a terrible record at the Premadasa. We have like a 30% win rate, right? Yet we've continued to demand that we play at the Premadasa. I think we're hurting this team. When you look at the skill set of this team, they're not guys who can clear 80-meter boundaries. Yet we're playing in a pitch with 80-meter boundaries, and we're playing in a slow pitch where anybody who can turn the ball just a little bit is able to be effective, right? The most effective of the New Zealand spinners wasn't Mitchell Santner, who was their best spinner, but Rachin Ravindra, right? And I think that also speaks to intent, right? Against part-time spinners, and this is what New Zealand was looking to do, was we put them under the mark and say, you're not going to get a chance to bowl these free overs at me. Force them to do something different. Don't let them land the ball in one spot over and over again and get you out, right? So for me, it speaks to like a bunch, there are 4 or 5 or 6 major tactical decisions that Sri Lanka has made over the last 2 years that have led to precisely this moment.
For the benefit of those listening to the podcast, which will be available on Spotify and all the other podcast apps soon after the end of this show, Udit Rosh has joined us, and I'll bring him in a second. I just want to add, I just think that we spent ages wanting Sri Lanka cricket to kind of embrace data and analytics the way everyone else has done. And I feel that in some ways we kind of have done, but we've kind of gone too far the other way. So it's like we're looking at the wrong data points, we're looking at the wrong matchups, we're looking at the wrong kind of, bits of data almost. And I feel the thing that's been totally forgotten, and I was thinking about this during the game when I was like, if you went back kind of 15 years ago and you look at the Sri Lanka team, which is the kind of prime Sri Lanka team, right? Sangha, Mahela, Dilshan, Murali, who else? Malinga, maybe even Sadath was in the side back then, right? The thing that we had above all else was a culture and kind of bulletproof mindset, so we can even dig ourselves out of these bad situations. And now it feels like any moment where we think we should win that little tiny battle, that ball or wherever, and it goes the other way, it feels like we get totally pushed back. So that when that first ball wicket happens in the top of our innings, you're just like, well, we don't have the mindset for this. Like, the culture is set in this team by when we're batting by Pathum and Kusal, right? Even on one leg, I'd still have picked him over Kusal Mendes over half our other batters, right? And I kind of just blame the politics around our side for putting us into this position. I think you just can't look at, like, Chad Hassaranga being dropped into the side today is just such a left field decision to make. And, we talked earlier on, Anton explained why he thought that decision had been made, and maybe it's because of comments that were made last time. But it's just like, what is the culture in this dressing room? What is the culture of leadership? Because everything that ever happens that is good, if it gets slightly knocked back, we must rebuild it. So you're like, we're set up to fail. I'm just so sick of it. Sorry, Udit, I'll end my rant and let you have a go.
I mean, this is a repeat telecast of what we had last. When was this? 23rd when we had this. Anton,
Yep.
Myself, I think Don was there as well. Mark was there, and it's just repeated itself. There's nothing else happened. Both matches, winning situation to go and lose it, and we are making decisions in terms of the team. We think that this is still the 90s, where we can just pull someone from somewhere, put them into place, and then everything will be brilliant. And that's not going to work. Coming into the World Cup, we were making decisions like that. From the administration to, our combinations. We were not sure of playing 7-4. Now, the entire last 6 months, maybe a year, we are playing a 7-4 combination. And come the World Cup, we're playing a 6-5 combination. We've taken a captain, we've thrown him out. We've got a new guy coming in, which had no logic. And we expect, even the fans probably expect things like that to work. It does not. Modern cricket does not work like that. And today, I heard Anton talking about the toss. We shouldn't have chased. When we couldn't chase 146 being in Palikale, that confidence had gone, right? We didn't have the confidence to chase those games, chase at all. And we made that decision, put a score on the board and then defend it. It's a turning wicket. You should know that. Yes, you got 3.5 millimeters of grass on it, but then how well does that work after the third over? After the fourth over, it stops working, right? And we go and chase. This is the problem. We spoke about this last time on the 23rd also. We have a set plan. I don't think they don't analyze. They do analyze, right? They make use of the brain center. You make use of the analysts that we have. and then we stick to that plan. You cannot go into a game of cricket with set plans, right? When things change, you need to have the game presence to make those decisions. 15th to 20th over, why the hell did we go and bowl Dushman Chamira there? We shouldn't have. We had come into Mendes up our sleeves. We should have bowled him, right? Even if he went for 15 runs or 20, then at least the decision would have been good because spinners were effective. New Zealand did it. I mean, if you're going into the field with a sense that, look, we got plan A, we got plan B, that's where we're going to stick, that we're not going to change. You're not going to win game of cricket. So we're basically playing checkers on a field of chess. That's what we're doing. And so much to say, right, in terms of the administration and all of that. But at the end of the day, you're on the field. You need to be able to make those decisions. And when you have a head coach who panics first, I'm being very blunt. When you have a head coach who is the first one to panic, how are you going to have a culture in the team which is going to fight for every delivery, for every run? We can continue the conversation. That's all I have to say right now.
Oh, I'm just so absolutely gutted. The road to Ahmedabad is over for Sri Lanka, right? I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going to be walking around the dry city next week doing like nothing. I'm joking. I'm not going like. But yeah, thankfully I didn't book tickets. I don't know, Anton, whether you want to talk a little bit about this culture where kind of it seems to me all decision making gets kind of taken out of the hands of all the players and it's just into the hands of the coaches, and obviously the coaches are on the pitch, so they can't adapt.
Look, again,
and before going there, sorry, Mark, I'm going to interrupt. I'm just in a different mood.
No, go.
So before the game started, I got the information from inside that Kusal Mendes had torn his hamstring.
Oh my God!
It's a grade 1 tear. It was before the game, so this was during training in the morning. What I heard was he was not willing to get on the field to train today, and this is what I heard. Okay, this is what I heard. And they had basically forced him to do a sprint. They had forced him to do 3 sprints, and in one of those sprints, he tore his hamstring. And we are playing a half player from there on. Right? No one spoke about it. It never came out. I didn't speak about it either because I was not sure till I saw him on the field. Right? And if this is the way we are thinking of playing cricket, we've lost it. We've lost it completely.
That's absolutely ridiculous. To play a player with a torn hand, to have them keep wicket, okay, that is also ridiculous. He kept wicket for 20 overs, and then they said,
I mean, if you wanted to, you should have batted first then.
Yeah,
right. Exactly. He can be on injections. He can be on painkillers. He could have batted first then, and made full use of that. What I don't understand. I think he's confused.
And KJP is there too.
I definitely sense the frustration, and I can understand that for sure. And I mean, we need to be careful as well. Just we don't want to speak out of turn. We don't really know what went down. But if that's the case, of course, that's you're basically digging your own grave there. But I think it's fair. I mean, I don't want to have another half an hour rant about injuries in Sri Lankan cricket because I've been there. I've lived it for 3 years, and I'll just reiterate what I said last time. Whatever has been done or what is currently doing is not working. So you've got to take that textbook, you've got to throw it out the window, and you've got to start all over again. And I mean that with utmost respect for everyone that is involved in the setup, because you can't have this happening. It can't be that so many cricketers are pulling hamstrings and getting injured during tournaments like this. It's just it's unforgiving. You can't do that. So something needs to be done about that. Whether they get world-class specialists in to fix that, I'm not sure. But like I said, whatever they've been doing has not been working. So let's just move on from that before we, say anything that might not be true. The proof is, I keep saying it, the proof is in the pudding. What happened out in the park? We've got another star of Sri Lankan cricket injured, and it's another hamstring. So there's got to be something going on.
No pudding, Anton. That's the problem, right? We never get any pudding.
Yeah, sorry, Mark. I just wanted to say one point that I wanted to make before I forget about it on the podcast is there's definitely a lot of positives that I could have seen from this group. And I don't necessarily have to run through all of them, but I just want to defend the team a little bit because, I've been there with the guys. I've felt it. They'll definitely be feeling it now in the change rooms. If you talk about fight, I think Dom spoke a little bit about, they want to see fight or whatever. I think we saw that for the first 16 overs, regardless of the toss. Let's leave that aside for now. We saw that fight, right? We saw that fight. The guys were fighting. It's not often in a game where you drop a catch and then very next over or two later, you get given another opportunity. And we took that, and it happened twice, I think it was, during the game. So I felt like the rub of the green was on our side, and we did a lot of things well up until the 16th over. But, then it's the age-old stuff that comes into play for me. The experience of the New Zealand setup, the tactical acumen of decisions being made on the field. They've got guys that have played in World Cup finals and World Cup semi-finals and in tournament finals around the world. All that experience came to the show when it mattered, right? And I think that is the big talking point, or the big difference between the two sides for me, was the experience part. Now, experience doesn't just mean you've got 100 games under your belt. Experience means nothing if you don't showcase that into action and into decision making and into summing up conditions, into understanding that, yes, this wicket wasn't great. We've seen that over and over again. So why did we go death bowling plan so early? And we basically took the pitch out of the equation from the 16th over onwards. Stuff like that just came to the fore. Then they get those extra few runs on the board. We've spoken about momentum. All the momentum shifted into the away change room. Matt Henry comes out there. Matt Henry is world class. He's going to go down as probably one of New Zealand's best ever fast bowlers in the world. He's probably right up there right now as one of the best fast bowlers in the world. He cuts the head off the snake in Pathum Nissanka, first ball. And, look at the scoreboard. And that's where these guys are. And I'm flabbergasted by, the people that have commentated on the game. They're all talking about, is West Indies all of a sudden now a dark horse in the World Cup? Is England all of a sudden? No one's spoken about New Zealand. They've just come in, they've done their thing, and they've shown time and time again, when the game's on the line, their experience steps up to the plate. They get the basics right? They make good quality decisions around their team selection, and someone always bails them out in terms of good quality decision making on the park, which filters throughout the rest of the group. And then you see this is what happens. And I think these guys are putting themselves into a great position to make a run for the semi-finals and further along.
You see, for me, Anton, when I was watching New Zealand, I had very similar thoughts to you, and my take was it's the exact opposite of what's going on in Sri Lanka, right? Where in New Zealand, they know who their talented players are. There's a very clear idea of what their players are capable of, when their players are going to be most effective in a game, and who they want to be bowling when and who they want to be batting when, and they don't panic. And I feel watching the New Zealand team that they are empowered to make the right decisions that they think in that moment. Where you look at Sri Lanka and it's like they've got all the opposite problems. Sri Lanka's problem almost is like this abundance of talent. So it's almost like if we've got like if so and so won't work, get him out, try someone else in. Where with New Zealand, their system is forced to work with their best seamers to get their best seamers to work best. It's not anyone knows someone else. Should we try someone else at this spot? And I think there's so much that Sri Lankan cricket should look at New Zealand and the way their system works 100%. And go, we can reflect that. If you speak to anyone in Sri Lankan cricket about finances, they're very proud to tell you they earn more, or Sri Lankan cricket has more money than New Zealand cricket. And if that is the case, and for a poor man like me, when you're talking in millions, it doesn't matter. But if that is the case, then why can't we implement the same kind of system that New Zealand have? Right? New Zealand don't have a situation where they've turned up to 4 or 5 tournaments in advance now with their best players injured or getting injured. They make sure everyone turns up at the right time without injuries. They empower their players. Their players get better over time. They work on the weaknesses of their players and their teams and work out situations. New Zealand have become, in the 2020s and 2010s, what Sri Lanka used to be, a team that is always there competing at the top end of major tournaments. We've lost that spot. We're going to finish this tournament 8th. I think that's actually a fair reflection of where we are in the world. I think the teams below us don't, maybe, like, you know, yeah, Australia are probably the 9th best T20 side in the world at the moment, but they're at the end of the cycle, right? They're going to build up. They're going to, maybe not the next tournament, the tournament after that. We all know, we can all say without knowing anything else in the future, that Australia will win T20 tournaments again. We know that they'll rebuild and they'll have better sides again. Yeah, there's a crisis for their team at the moment, but I have full faith in their ability to be able to rebuild a team which Sri Lanka, in some ways, I'll get back to that question, but in some ways, it's like we haven't ever rebuilt since 2014, 2015. And whenever a crisis like this happens, and this is the question, there has to be ramifications for this T20 World Cup performance by Sri Lanka. Some players should never play again for SL. Am I being harsh? That's from Wesley. I mean, I think that is harsh, because I don't think the system here is setting them up to go out and win. I think everything that Sri Lanka cricket has almost ever done well has been despite the administration and despite the system.
Yeah.
And it's been that the team within the changing room, they've been able to develop a winning culture. Since 2015, we've just lost that. And there's occasionally we get signs that we might be getting it, but then there'll be a change of coach or a change of captain, and we hit the reset and everything changes again. I don't know what you guys think about that.
I'll just quickly, 2 minutes, and I'll open up to everyone else. Is like, I think the one word that I would love Sri Lanka to use is actually build, not rebuild. Like, we shouldn't be always rebuilding. There are only so many players in Sri Lanka that are good enough right now to play at international level and get us into a semi-final, into a final. So the fact is that you've got to work with those players and build on what you have to make them better, not rebuild. Because rebuilding, you're basically just recycling the same group of pick players, drop players, pick players, drop players, pick players. So you're not always building. Yes, you're rebuilding, but we shouldn't be rebuilding. We should be building to the next tournament. And after that tournament, we build again, and we build again, and we build again, and we set ourselves a 5-year, 6-year target to say, right, the next time the World Cup is in this place or that place, this is the squad that's going to be put together, and we're going to build with this team from now on in. But, you know, this team is completely different to what the team was when we won the Asia Cup in 2022. Why didn't we build on that team? You know? And then you just add in small little tweaks along the way to make it better. But it feels like you say, Mark, why are we even pressing the reset button? We should be always building. And I've got no doubt in my mind that, yes, there will be ramifications after this tournament, and those ramifications will go into the areas that shouldn't be ramified, if that makes sense.
That's the thing, though. I think Anton makes a really great point in that this idea of building over 6 to 7 years or targeting ahead 6 to 7 years instead of looking at what are we going to do in the 2020. Now, the next conversation would be, how do we win the 2027 World Cup, right? That's the next question. But that should not be how it's done, right? You have to understand that you're not, teams aren't going to change overnight. They're not going to suddenly become capable of winning a World Cup, right? You have to build on what you have. And I will say, as someone who has covered like school sports, not just cricket, that this is the culture that exists at every level. If you are a school's rugby coach, you are given 2 years maximum. I'll never forget. I think I can't remember the year it was. Sri Lanka had the school called Wesley College. They had a coach from New Zealand called Paul Toya. Absolutely brilliant, tactically brilliant. The culture he was creating was brilliant, right? What does he get? 2 years because the team didn't win anything. You're not building a successful culture if you're not allowing people who are good at what they do to actually build, right? And that's what we've seen in the national setup. I mean, we can talk about so many coaches that Sri Lanka have had, right? Whether you talk about, someone like, actually even someone like Chandika Hathurusinghe, who had all that success against Bangladesh, with Bangladesh. It wasn't built in a year or two. And then Sri Lanka thought, oh my God, he's going to work for us. He's going to work for us. They bring him in and they don't allow him to do things the way he wants to. And a couple of years later, he's gone, right? That is what keeps happening at every level in Sri Lankan sport. And that's why it's difficult to build. Because today, if we are talking about 2027, they should forget about 2027. They should be targeting a World Cup that's coming in 3, 4, 5 years, right? And how we're going to make the semis, make the finals there. Sri Lanka had a great opportunity, I think, 2023, knowing it's a World Cup that's going to be held in India, which we can say similar conditions to Sri Lanka at that point, before we were playing on pitches like this, right? From 2019, they could have built towards that tournament. They didn't do it, right? And then that's why you get, like, before a tournament, captaincy changes, as Udit mentioned, going from 7-4, which Sri Lanka have been using for the last, I don't know how many months, to suddenly World Cup, we're playing 6-5. That's what happens, right? You change, you're making decisions based on one thing or two things, or you're changing. That's why I said there's no clarity, there's no belief in what the decisions you're making, and you're looking for quick results, and that's never going to come. Australia is not Australia because they've, like, had success overnight. India is not the India they are today because they've, like, things have happened overnight, right? It's been something that's been built over the years. So it's very difficult to be optimistic about the system, because you see this at every level. It's not just at the highest international level where we're seeing it. You're seeing it at schools level as well.
Dasun has said something in the post-match conference. We thought it was a good wicket. That's why we bowled first, but it was a spinning wicket. When you have so much of international players and experience in your support staff, and we've misread the wicket, apparently.
And it's not the first time. This is not okay. I can forgive you if you're going to a place where there's never been a cricket match played, like in 2024 in New York, but in your home ground that you've curated, that's unbelievable. And I think I just want to echo a couple things Anton and Estelle said. If you look at this team from top to bottom, there is quite a bit of talent. And I think it's important that you persist with that and teach them the skills they need to excel at T20 cricket. We're not going to find 100 guys who we can just chop and change in. Look at the bowling lineup. Can you tell me that this bowling lineup, with a healthy Mathisha, with Wanindu Hassaranga, is not of the quality of any of the sides? Maybe India, maybe South Africa, I would say are better than them for sure. But the quality this bowling side has is certainly the quality that you would need to get to a semifinal performance, right? So then you should be doing your backwards math from that. Say, okay, we are going to back that bowling lineup and all the skills it has to take us to the semifinals. And then you reconstruct, okay, well, what do we need to do in terms of batting to back up that bowling lineup as best as possible? What roles do we need to play? What areas of the game do we need to take advantage of? And to talk about strategy, not only was there a switch from 7-4 to 6-5, there was a switch in how they played the power play. Sri Lanka had a lot of batting success attacking with Pathum and Kusal in the power play. But the fear of losing wickets and protecting the middle order fundamentally changed the way they played the game. And that was something they reintroduced. The Kusal as anchor that happened in this tournament, right, was not what they had been doing. And so, again, there's no set plan. There's no idea of, like, this is our team, this is how we play, and this is who we back. And I can tell you, watching players like Kamindu and Dunith Walalage play, if they are taken care of, they're going to be match winners for Sri Lanka. But they've been dropped, and both of them, many times, right? Not even played, not preferred. You need to support that kind of talent and that quality. And it takes someone who's going to tell those guys, I'm going to give you 15 matches to perform, and this is what the role I want you to perform, and this is how I want you to play the role. And of course, that's going to change on the day. You've got to problem solve, but you have to give them that stable base from which to work in order to grow.
A few things there. The Pathum Nissanka Kusal Mendes opening partnership, right? It worked. I think they had scored some 1,700 runs also. And then they failed a few innings, a few games. And then we panicked and we started changing because, as you said, Dom, because we are collapsing. So that whole 7-4 strategy came not because of the resources we had or the wickets we're playing on, nothing. It was based on the fact that our batsmen are failing. Right? That foundation is an issue. So when you're making decisions just because there are a few players failing, we need to plaster it up. Let's go 7-4 and see what happens. And then we lose momentum again because we are going without one specialist bowler. And then we've gone and changed it again during the World Cup. Right? So we shouldn't have, in the first place, panicked and changed Pathum Nissanka into something. Fine, if you changed it, then you stick with one left-hander. Right? If it's Kamil Mishra, it's Kamil Mishra. If it's KJP, it's KJP. You don't keep changing it. Because Kamil Mishra is coming from the domestic setup, and we've spoken about the technical issues that he has transferring into the international setup. Then you need to give them time. But how long have we given Kamil Mishra? Since November? And we've gone into the World Cup. Then we shouldn't have made the decision there, Kamil Mishra. We should have probably got KJP in there, do something else if you want a left-hander. Get someone with experience there and get him in touch in the next 3 months. And then think of Kamil Mishra as a future investment after the World Cup, right? So these decisions, right? I always say this, we are just looking for things in the dark, and whatever we get hold of, we get hold. And if you're going to continue to do this in the next, probably they will. If you look at the setup from 2015, Anton has been part of it. From 2015 to 2025, it's the same people who are going around. Sometimes they've been selector, sometimes they've been coach, right? It's the same bunch of people. So someone asked about accountability. There you go. Somebody has to take accountability for the last 10 years of what has happened in Sri Lanka. 2015 to 18, we saw what happened in terms of selections. We've got about 30, 40 players coming into the setup, which is wrong with the broken domestic system. We've been picking players and we've destroyed careers there. Right? Some people still haven't recovered. Some good players haven't recovered. And it's the same bunch of people making the decisions. At least now, come into the sense and get that changed. Take accountability, step out. With all good intentions, I'm sure, and all due respect, I'm sure the intention is good. But if it's not working, it's not working.
Guys, I've put the link in. If you want to come and join us, please do. We often, this is group therapy, and I think in the history of Murali End, we've never needed group therapy more. We will make as much time and space. Before I open up the room, though, Anton, there's a lot of comments asking for you to become the next head coach. If somebody from Colombo gave you the call, would you take the call? I'm not even saying would you accept the role. I'm just saying, would you have the conversation?
Oh, I'll be back in a heartbeat, that's for sure. It's whether Sri Lanka cricket wants me back. That's another question. But it's no surprise to anyone. I've got fond memories of Sri Lanka. I love the boys. I love the team, and most importantly, I believe in what those guys are capable of. So, yeah, it's definitely a dream of mine to be a head coach again down the line. And who knows? Maybe someone can pick up the phone and say, "Hey, come across again." But we'll have to wait and see about.
Mark, it's time to buy some lump fry.
I was going to say, we need a protective bubble around Anton if he becomes coach, so he doesn't have to, a 5-year protective bubble where he doesn't have to hear anything from the outside.
Yeah, I'll definitely won't be able to do it on my own. I need an army with me, so that's for sure.
Anton, realistically,
there is hope, right? I love the fact that Anton spoke about not rebuilding and building, right? Sometimes we Sri Lankans, when we get emotional and we, when things like this happen, we also talk about rebuilding. Scrap everything. Let's start from the beginning. But this building is very important. The problem with this is the administration, whoever is in charge, should cut off the outside noise also. Fans will keep saying this, take him out, put someone else. It's not going to work. Administration needs to be strong, stick to the plan. This is what we're going to do, and go forward with it, right? I'm seeing comments about Bella coming in. I'm for that, right? I'm for stripping down of this T20 side, keep the few players who actually are showing intent, and then go with a new captain. But the problem is, Dunit Villalage is a junior player, right? He's not a senior. His team is still at domestic level, like with people like Lassit Pulle, Nishan Madushka, Sunal Dinush, all these youngsters who would probably look at Dunit Villalage as a leader are still behind in the domestic system, right? And here you have a Charit Asalanka, Dasun Shanaka, two captains, Kusal Mendis as captain, Vanidhu Hassaranga as captain, right? And if you're going to go put Dunit Villalage there, he's not going to be able to create that dressing room culture that he wants to. So if you're going to build, it's going to be tough. Then there you have to bring that whole rebuilding thing, and you strip a few people and then try and get that culture around him built. And I think that is a way forward also. But how are we going to do that with all those senior players in the side?
I think Udit, you make a good point there, and everyone knows that I'm a huge fan of a guy like Weller, but yeah, he's a very young cricketer, and he needs to be looked after as much as possible, not just from a playing perspective, but just him as a leader. I'll go back to a quote that or a saying at least that I heard quite a few years back, is that a lot of players go through their careers and everyone wants to be a captain, but no one understands what it's like to be a leader. And they're two completely different things. Anyone can be a captain. Anyone can say, "Hey, Dushi, you warm up, the next over," because Lasith Malinga has just told me who to bowl for the next 4 overs, so all I have to do is marshal that on the field. But how does a guy like a young Weller, who's absolutely going to be a leader for us for Sri Lanka, but how does he go about leading a team that is filled with guys like Hassaranga, Kusal Mendes, Amindu Mendes, Charit Asalanka, who've been in his position before? How does he go about leading them? And more importantly, how does he go about leading an administration that is, as soon as Sri Lanka loses a game, they want to strip the whole team and start over again? So it takes a special human being to not only be captain, but what this team is crying out for is a leader that can stand up and actually say to them, "You know what? No, I've had enough. Stick with this side. This is what we've got. We're going with this. End of story." But I just feel that there's too many pawns in the whole saga, and everyone's trying to do a little bit to keep their place in the team, and we're actually not moving forward in a meaningful way. So that's why I would just pump the brakes a little bit when it comes to Weller, because I don't want to put him in that position so early on in his career, because that kid's going to, if it was up to me, he's going to be playing for Sri Lanka for the next 15 years.
And just to add on to that, like when Anton talks about like how difficult it is, you only have to look to what happened to Asalanka, right? As Mark mentioned, it's not purely cricketing reasons that he ended up losing his captaincy. He dared to stand up to some of the decisions being made by SLC, and as a repercussion, he lost his captaincy, right? So it's not the easiest thing, and I think also what happens is sometimes players, like if you look at Villalage, and I would suspect that he is not happy with it either. How many different positions has he batted? How many different roles has he had in this team, right? Sometimes you feel like players like that, particularly coming into a team that has so many senior players, so many people who have captained, kind of get scapegoated a bit, in that they're pushed to the positions where the other guy doesn't want to play, right? I mean, I will say, I remember very distinctly at the 2022 World Cup in Australia, which Anton was part of, and we were trying to get interviews with one of the players. And one of the stars, I won't name names, but one of the guys, so usually the practice is you speak to the team manager and he arranges the interview with the player, right? So generally, if you're a traveling journalist, teams are generally very accommodating, right? And because these journalists have taken their time, spent money, and they're here to cover the team and see behind the scenes and give that kind of information out. And I remember very distinctly us speaking to the manager that we wanted this star player. Can we have this star player? When the manager asked him, he said, "I can't." And he just walked away, right? So I feel like sometimes, even within the team, when there are difficult situations where players feel like it might be detrimental to them to go into that situation, they just simply say, "I can't." And then guys like Vella get stuck with having to do that. And I feel like even the captaincy, it could turn out to be something like that, where, okay, say he's made captain today, the moment there's a failure in a series or whatever, the blame comes on to him, because you're not thinking about, okay, what has led to this situation, but okay, he's performed badly or he's not doing well enough. So that's, I think, the tricky part with Vella. I think, as Anton said, like it's easy to see why people rate him so highly. He may not be the standout player in a team or the most talented or anything like that, but obviously he's very clearly got the temperament of a leader, right? But in an environment like this, it's never going to be easy. No matter, like, even if he gets captaincy like 5 years down the line, it's not going to be an easy job.
And I'll add
It's a
in.
good point there about captaincy. I'm just going to interrupt here. This is why I say there's something wrong with the culture, right? I mean, when Dasun Chanaka took that second 11 team to Pakistan, won that 3-0 series, beating the then number one T20 side 3-0. And when he came, the way he carried himself in the press conference, we saw he was a strong leader, right? 3 years down the line, he goes and wins an Asia Cup. Very good, brilliant. And then what happened to him the year later, right, come the 2023 World Cup. Charit Asalanka has been captain of Richmond for, when he was in school, he was captain. He was groomed as a captain. He captained the under-19 side. And these guys, just like they're speaking about Vella right now, they spoke about Charit Asalanka. Why isn't Charit Asalanka in this team? Why isn't he here? He should be here. He should be here. He came in, started off well. When he got the captaincy, everything goes well, and then he gets messed up as well. And then who is to say that, Dunit Villalagi is going to go through the same thing? There's something wrong with the culture. There's something wrong with the setup. So when you're coming from school cricket to domestic cricket to the international setup, everybody just goes bonkers for some odd reason. I don't know what the reason is. Either there are senior, I said this once before. If you look at the Lasat Malingas, Sanat Jayasuryas, Pramod Vikramasinghe, all of these guys are guys who've achieved things, right? They've won world championships, including Mahal. But these kids haven't achieved anything, right? There's a massive gap there. So when you are in positions of power, you need to make the juniors feel comfortable. So even if Dunit Villalagi is given captaincy tomorrow, people like Vanadu Hassaranga, Mahis Theekshana, Kusal Mendis, Pathum Nissanka needs to take a step back and we'll support you. And that's how it works. Sachin Tendulkar did that, right? He was on top of his game. He became captain. He failed. He got removed, and he still played in that team as a star player. Virat Kohli did that, right? This is a part of cricket. Whoever the leader is, you support, right? You might be a star player. That doesn't matter. Captain is your leader. You support them. And this,
Udit, I think the issue with that is that in Sri Lanka, your position is not secure unless you're captain, right? That's also a problem.
Until they sack
so
you,
as a
right?
player, is thinking like, player is thinking, if I'm
I'm-
captain, at least until I'm captain, I'm assured of a spot in this playing 11.
And look at
That's
what
also an
happened.
issue they have to think about.
The one captain we haven't talked about is Wanindu Hassaranga, a guy who actually came in with a plan for how they were going to attack T20 cricket. And it was a modern plan. It was a high risk, high reward plan. And guess what? It failed massively. But he was captain for 6 months. With a captain like that who has big ideas, you can't say, okay, we'll give it a try for 5-6 games and then we'll let it go. Right? So any type of innovation is going to be met with resistance, with losses. And it's also, one of the underlying things we've talked about is the Aya culture, right? That having someone like Dunith Wellalage, no matter how good he is as captain, he is still expected to show deference to his elders.
Guys, I'm gonna just start to bring some callers on because there's lots of people waiting backstage. If you're never been on before, I'm gonna try and get you on first. So Arson, Manik, and Kai, you guys are gonna have to wait because you're the kind of regulars on. Thank you for that. Royston, thank you for joining us today, bro. How are you feeling after that loss?
Hey, how's it going? Can you hear me?
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Yeah, do you know what? It was.
Where are you?
So I'm in Fulham, I just left work.
Oh,
so I'm walking about. So do you know what? It was painful to watch, to be fair. I made a joke to my manager, you know what? I feel a bit sick. I need to go home, man. It was that kind of a game because you came to this game with high expectations. You're playing at home. The odds are not against you. The odds are in favor. The crowd is behind you. You should be winning these games. But I think one of the biggest problems is what SLC doesn't recognize is that these players, they play all over the world. They used to spin friendly conditions. They play in India all the time. They play in the UAE, Pakistan, Bangladesh, you name it. They play all over the world. So for you to make spin-friendly conditions, thinking that it's going to favor you, you are deluded. It seems as if our players are not used to playing in our own conditions. I was going through some of the strike rates of players that haven't made it to the Sri Lankan national team yet. And I kid you not, I couldn't find any player that was striking at over 150. Why is that? Because you're playing in spin-friendly conditions. And your stroke making is not conducive to that. We're still playing 2014. I think Sri Lankans are very good historians, and they like living in the past, talking about, we still talk about the 96 World Cup. We still talk about the 2014 World Cup. And these are good milestones, but we need to move on from those days. We made a big mistake by getting players like Chandimal and Thirumanne into T20 setups. And that actually derailed our game. Now these players are finding their feet after those guys. There's a big gap left after Sangha and Mahela left. Because Thirumanne and Chandimal, they couldn't bridge that gap. Now these guys are having to find their feet all by themselves without real experience. And I also heard some of the guys talking about captaincy on here. Really and truly, they have to make somebody captain in the team. You know what I mean? But there's nobody in that team that deserves to be captain, apart from Pathum Nissanka, I reckon. But you can't give him the captaincy. He's your best player. You don't want to overburden him, I think as Sri Lankans, we're hopeful, obviously, but anybody could have seen this coming from a mile off. It's very disappointing, obviously. I think we need wholesale changes. Make the pitches flat. And we did that. We did that for a period of time, if you remember. But what happened? They saw the World Cup coming. Oh no, let's backtrack. Let's go back to what we know, what we used to, what we did in 2014. It will work. Guess what? It doesn't work. People can play spin, and it's not like you go world class. I mean, okay, what's his name? Tikshana. He's okay. I think he's lost a bit of his mystery. He's not a guy that thinks on his feet. When people attack him, I think he kind of loses his cool and tends to give away boundaries and things like that. But when one of these not there, our attack lacks the bite. And I think we've been found out. But that's my rant anyway. So.
No, it's a lot of valid points in there. Anton, I'd love to ask you about players going around the world to play franchise cricket, because I do think that, we talk a lot of Murali End when we aren't talking about World Cup games, about SLC should try and get more players to play in different leagues. I think they go away and learn different experiences and play with different teams, see what happens in different cultures. How much of an impact do you think it's having on the game? And where do you see the way Sri Lankan cricket is on in terms of the way other cricket boards have approached it?
I think it's having a huge impact on the game. But I'd go even a step below that. I think a lot more, young teams around the world are sending players to places like Sri Lanka, India, and Pakistan to go and learn the craft of playing on conditions like this, because they don't get that in their own conditions. But, even with that, you've still been able to take that knowledge and then process it and work on something to make you better for the next time you come and visit, right? And I just feel that that's sometimes where the Sri Lankan way of doing things, that's where it gets short-circuited. I don't see us really learning from those sort of things, because we keep coming home to our conditions and we keep preparing the same sort of stuff, even though outside people have come in and said, listen, we need to change, we need to evolve, we need to adapt. We've got the skills, we know how to do it. But then people are still saying, no, this is how we do things on the island. This is what we're going to do here. This is how we're going to go about playing and doing our thing. But before you know it, the rest of the world, because they've been playing across, they've been subject to these conditions from a young age, they've overtaken us. And I say us because, I still feel like I'm part of the Sri Lankan team and my heart still lies there. But yeah, I honestly, I don't look at Sri Lanka anymore and think that they are going to outplay anyone in their home conditions. And that's quite sad to say, and I think today was quite a wake-up call, or should be a wake-up call for Sri Lanka, that even with a world-class bowling attack that we've got, clearly our guys cannot play spin like we thought we could. And other spinners around the world have the tools in their locker, because they've been exposed to these conditions before. They've gone back, they've been coached how to work on it, and now next time they come into these conditions, they outperform even the local players, And sometimes you've got to doff your cap and say, well done to the opposition in doing that, because clearly the way that they do things are working. And I can tell you now, we should be watching what they're doing. We should be taking a little leaf out of their book and stop thinking that Sri Lanka is the best when it comes to their home conditions. Clearly we're not. We're not in the era of when Murali used to bowl 60 overs from the one end, and we had other guys just doing their thing from the other side. Those days are done. Like, everyone has to bring something to the party. Most importantly, you need to know how to do it. I think Rachin spoke a little bit when he in his post-match interview, where he said, even before the game started, they got given stats saying that you should be bowling at a slower pace, because that extracts way more turn out of the wicket than bowling a lot quicker. Well, I didn't see Sri Lanka really slow it down beforehand. So, why did they not have that first-handed knowledge? They are home-based conditions. So that's number one. And then it got backed up by Mitch Santner when he was actually batting out there in the middle, and he revealed to players like McConchie and Rachin Ravindra and Glenn Phillips to actually bowl a little bit slower with a little bit more overspin, and all of a sudden you started seeing that ball turn and bounce like we've never seen before, right? So yes, coming back to your original question, Mark, I think playing overseas has absolutely helped a lot of the overseas professionals, including Sri Lanka's professionals, but you've still got to be able to do something with knowledge, apply it to your game, and make it sustainable for yourself and for the team moving forward, so that you don't land up in the situation as what we're in right now.
Sorry, can I make one more point?
Yeah, go on.
Sorry, I just want to say as well that when there was a time when Kamindu played a reverse sweep, the game was all but gone by then, right? But Santner stopped the game, made a few changes. Okay, he didn't have to do that, But I didn't watch the last 4 overs of the Sri Lankan bowling innings, right? But I can guarantee that they sat on their heels, because I've seen this over and over again, where when Sri Lanka gets 6 wickets, 5 wickets, they think the batsmen are just going to get out. They don't make things happen. They wait for the batsmen to make mistakes. You can't do that in T20. In T20, all you need is 3 overs to go your way. You win the game. You have to make things happen. And I don't think, maybe I'm wrong, I don't think Sri Lanka have done that this tournament and historically. And hopefully they will learn from this. That's all we can hope for as fans, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Royce, before I let you go, there's a question that's come in for you from Supreme God Emperor Donald Trump. Is Royston Labroy related to Graham Labroy family? Distinct name, obviously. Graham was a former Sri Lankan cricketer. Is he related? Are you related? How are you related?
No. I used to think that myself, but but I'm not. But actually, Labroy is a common Sri Lankan name from the colonial days. I think it's Dutch. I got great respect for the great man, but I'm not related by any way, shape, or form.
Mate, if any Machado got anywhere there, even if there was a Machado running the water on, I would claim relationship. So
There's loads of them on Facebook. Labro is all over.
wicked, bro. I'm gonna let you go. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
And
Can I
hopefully
just
next.
Yeah,
go on,
make
Estelle,
one
what did you want
point
to say?
before
Go ahead,
heading
go
out?
ahead.
Yeah. I was gonna say that with just to chip in on the conditions, right? Sri Lanka have been playing in these conditions for the last 2 years, right? They seem to not get better, seem to have not gotten better at it. And then you have a team like New Zealand coming in, they've played all their games in India and they nail it with their first go. So there's obviously things to be thought about, right? Internally, as Anton said, about are we doing the right research? Are we doing what kind of information are we getting, right? Are we thinking going into this pitch that since we're home, playing at home, we know these conditions, we don't have like anything, anything to add or anything special that we need to do, right? So that is, I think, a key point to think about, because I've heard a lot of people talking about how Sri Lanka gave England a real big advantage by giving them 3 games at Pallekele before the World Cup. Sri Lanka's been playing in these conditions for years now, but they still haven't got the hang of it, right? So these teams that are coming from overseas, the England, the New Zealand, right? These are teams that are not historically known to play spin well. They're coming in here and they're nailing their tactics, right? So there's something to think about. And as Anton said, like, you can always learn. You can learn from the other teams, learn from what they're doing. And I don't think that thinking is really happening. I think we saw it in the England game as well. Just the way the players went about things, it was almost as if they expected 140 to be a total they should just chase in their sleep without actually thinking about what they're doing or what they need to do ball by ball, not thinking about, okay, we are going to need this amount of runs at the death or whatever. Second thing is the tactics that Royston mentioned. Sri Lanka have a habit of doing that, don't they? Where they have a plan and they stick to that. They don't make adjustments. I think today, my opinion is, you look at how they've gone about things under Lasith Malinga, wide Yorkers is the way to go, right? Where did the run glut start for New Zealand in this innings? Is that boundary, I can't remember who the batter was, but it was off Chamira, where he knew what was going to come his way, right? And he played that shot. Sometimes I feel like having star players as coaches is actually detrimental, because for a lot of these players, like a Sanath Jayasuriya's, hitting comes natural to him, right? So there's not much thinking that has to go through for him to think about how do I adjust to this, whatever. But that's not the case for every player out there, right? Some players you have to give them step by step. This is what works. You should try this, right? So sometimes I feel like the wide Yorkers, they work, right? They've worked in the past, but that is Lasith Malinga's forte. Is it Dushmantha Chamira's? Is it Dilshan Madhushankar's? I don't think that's always the case. And with that, I'm going to go because they've switched off the lights.
Royce,
Mark, I'm going to be heading out as well. I'm going to be heading out
That's
as well.
guys, appreciate it. Take care.
Thanks, Royce, and I'll let you go. Udith, Estelle is gone. She leaves us from the Udith. Before you go, do you want to say a final few words? Then me and Anton can have a chat with everyone else who's around.
I'm going to stick to what Anton said. We need to keep building, right? A complete strip off and start over from the beginning doesn't sound good either. What kind of changes we'll make it's anybody's guess. I don't think anybody can actually call, this is going to happen in the next tour to the UAE with Afghanistan. But there are certain changes that have been made in the domestic structure. We've spoken about it, with the relegation and the NSL and all of that. I think, honestly, they need to bring back the NSL T20. They need to look at the under-19 level, what kind of wickets these kids are playing on, because half the school tournament 80% of the school tournament is playing on mat-in wickets. We need to change that. We need to figure out a way on how to change that, and bring in that NSL T20 tournament, which at least maybe have it twice a year, right? We need to come up with some kind of plan. Honestly, I don't know if they will. Not much hope on it. But this bunch of players, I mean, today we should have been celebrating, Mark. Don't you think?
Yeah.
We should have been celebrating today.
Yeah.
What we did in England, keeping them to 147, we should have won that game. Today we were 85 for 6, New Zealand at 16 overs. We should have been celebrating a semi-final berth, and we are not. So in a sense, in a way, the way we played against Australia, the way we played against India in the Asia Cup, it's not that these boys don't have talent. There's something wrong somewhere else. It's the culture, or whoever's looking at them, or whoever's above them, the coaches. I don't know who. I mean, we still haven't pinpointed that. But these boys have the talent. It's just that execution, something is wrong. Where that is wrong, it's up to the administration and the coaching and the management to figure it out. So I'm not going to say, strip all the 11 who is here now, and then you bring up new players. It's not going to happen, because these are the same. Kamil Mishra came in, same players. Dushan Hemanta came in, same players who are going to come from the domestic to here. It's going to be tough to adjust. So do subtle changes, probably, yes. I'm not a fan of local coaches coming in as head coach. I'm not, right? Every time we had a Mickey Arthur or a Chris Silverwood, something was happening. So I hope the rest of the legends, with all due respect, don't start coming on TV interviews and say, look, this is what we're supposed to do. It's not working, right? So that's all I have to say. It's sad. Pakistan next game, I don't know who is going to turn up and watch that game. And we'll probably beat Pakistan and then throw them out of the tournament as well. And then probably India will lose.
We should beat Pakistan.
Yeah, and India loses their last game. Probably we don't have a subcontinent team in a subcontinent World Cup, which says a lot. Which says a lot about modern cricket. And everybody else has got it, we've not. So that's all I have to say. Anton, I would love to speak to you about the New Zealand setup. I still haven't got the time to actually talk to you. Great to have you. Great to have this conversation also. Thanks, Mark.
Thanks for joining us. I'll let you go. But you can still keep uploading. That'd be wicked. Should we get Manik and Arson on now? Manik, you're in the car, so maybe you can have a chat first. How are you?
I can't hear anything.
Oh, can you hear me?
I can't hear anything.
Oh no.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Hold on, I'll take you off. You might have to put you back on. Arson's gone as well. Hold on.
I can't hear anything.
Can you guys hear us?
I can hear you. Yeah.
Yeah. Who could? Hold on. Let me. Right, Manik. How you feel about the game? How you feel about the game?
I was at the game. It was so painful to watch. Honestly, one of the most painful games I've ever seen in person. Like when you actually at the ground, you can see how pathetic our guys actually are. Like they're so behind the 8 ball. It's crazy, and it's just frustrating. And for the first time ever, I've never seen supporters express so much criticism at a game. Like they were literally hooting at our guys, and they were actually supporting New Zealand towards the end of the match, which was crazy.
I mean, I totally get it. Look, I wouldn't do that. I'd obviously, if I was there, I'd have obviously supported Sri Lanka all the way through. But I can understand why people were upset.
So you can understand the frustration, right? You can understand the frustration of people who've actually, taken off a half day at work and, spent their money to come and watch a game. Like, you obviously, I mean, losing is part and parcel of this game, but it's how you lose or how you compete. There was absolutely no competitiveness shown by our boys today, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think, for me, the Sri Lankan cricket team is so important to almost like my being as a Sri Lankan person. And the fact, when we went down the way we went down today, I said in our group, Anton, I was like, for me, this feels like the lowest moment in possibly ever in Sri Lankan cricket. I know there's been times when we've been bowled out for like 58 runs or 59 or 64, whatever it was, right? But the fact that what I found really difficult today was getting ourselves into such a good position quite early on in New Zealand's innings, and then it ends up being so awful. We just throw it all away, and it felt. I think say lack of fight's wrong. I don't want that, but it just felt rudderless. It felt clueless. Just going out for a home tournament, a tournament that we've all been looking forward to for so long, and you look at that team and how talented it is, I just felt like we've really let ourselves down here. I've muted you, Manic, momentarily because there's a lot of feedback coming through. I just felt like we really let ourselves down, and this didn't need to be the way it ended. We should have beaten England on Saturday, and we should have beaten New Zealand today, and we could have done if quite basic decisions were made, and that wasn't this morning, but that was kind of in the lead up and build up to the tournament. And I just think for the past 6 months, every possible decision that you could have made to empower these players, we've been taking the wrong decision, and that's what's led directly to the 2 results we've seen today. As I said earlier, we're going to finish 8th, and that's basically where we are at. We're the 8th best team in the world. I don't think it's difficult to argue that we're not, right, Anton?
Well, I mean, if you compare our previous World Cups, of which I've been a part of 2 of them, I would probably have to agree with that sentiment. We don't seem to be, I keep coming back to my original point, like it doesn't seem like we're learning from our, not necessarily mistakes, but from the lessons that the game's trying to teach us, right? So if you look, let's go back to you can break the last decade into, 2-year segments. And you can say that you can argue that every single 2 years or so, the game is trying to teach Sri Lanka a lesson around whether it's through team selection or whether it's through coaching or whether it's through development of players or whether it's through improving players, setting them up to be better, be overseas or even in home conditions, whatever it is, the game is always trying to teach Sri Lanka a lesson after every 2 years or so. But it doesn't seem like we're learning that lesson. It doesn't seem like we're implementing anything fruitful that's going to bear us some fruit down the line. What I keep seeing happening is that, we'll just get rid of this person, get rid of that person, we'll get someone new in and we'll try our luck with that guy. There's no, it's like we're planting a seed for a tree to grow, but if that tree's not growing as the way we want it to, we like rip the whole seed out and we plant something new. When actually support that tree, give it a bit more water, maybe move it into the shade, or maybe move it into the sun for a little bit longer, or maybe you should be moving it in and out of the sun every so often. Like we are so used to stripping everything down to its bare core again and starting again, instead of just, okay, what is the game trying to teach us here? What are we learning? What do we need? Who's the best person to get in to help us with that? Let's get that guy in, stick with him for a few years. Let's see if that plan works. If it does, brilliant, he stays on. If it doesn't, we reevaluate and we go a different route. But you can't keep chopping and changing every 2 years because you're never going to catch up to world cricket. And other teams are flying past us, which is why we feel like right now, or why Sri Lanka feels like right now, that 8th is rightfully the place to be. When actually, if you look at the type of players that we have and having a World Cup in your own backyard, we should be knocking on semi-finals door, in my opinion. So yeah, that's why I think we can. Sri Lanka needs to take a real good hard look at itself, not the players. I'm trying to stick up for the players here. Yes, the players. We can all, as fans, we can say they wanted more. I get that. From a fan's perspective, I fully agree with that, and I fully understand that, and I get that. But I think Sri Lanka cricket itself needs to have, and the fan base needs to have a good look at itself and be honest and say, okay, where are we at right now and how can we actually get better?
Yeah, Madik, what are you going to do for the rest of the evening? Well, how are you going to feel tomorrow morning, do you think, when you wake up and remember Sri Lanka have been knocked out?
Absolutely dreadful, Mark. I mean, having New Zealand on the ropes at 87 for 6 and then having conceded 70 off 4 to 5 overs is unforgivable. And I think captaincy played a huge role there. I think Dasun Shanaka should have never taken the spinners off. I believe Hemantha still had overs left. We still had Kamindu at the back end. I don't think he should have bowled the pacers at that point, and that just gave New Zealand that extra pace to help them get across those last few runs, and that cost us the game.
Yeah,
I agree. It's a similar point that I made on the WhatsApp thread. And when you're playing on a surface like that, that's not conducive to stroke play. So that's, it's offering variable bounce, variable pace. It's moving a little bit off the straight. So when that is the case, you've got to be able to hit that line and length for as long as possible into the game as that you can go. And I think it was almost like a predetermined thing that once the 16 over comes, or the 17th over comes, we go straight into our death plan, and we basically took the pitch out of the equation. And so then what happens there is, if your bowlers don't execute those perfect wide Yorkers or those perfect straight Yorkers, if you don't execute them spot on, you actually make it easier for the batsman to score. And when you've got guys who can freeze, I mean, you should see Mitch Santner hit a golf ball, let alone a cricket ball, right? So it's no surprise to me that, he was hitting balls out of the ground there, left, right, and center, and got them to a score that I think, if you look hindsight on that wicket, that was probably 20 runs above par, right? So I think New Zealand could have even defended 120 on that wicket, if I'm honest. So, those are sort of things I'm sure that the think tank will look back and discuss around this game specifically. But I think that problem lies a little bit deeper in terms of, how can we actually get better making decisions under the pump, and solving those problems on the fly, and actually making quality decisions out there that'll help us, help the team get over the line.
Wesley sent hold on, Manik. I just want to get to this question. Wesley sent a super chat, because this will be the thing that keeps me up at night, right? There'll be a lot of things about this campaign. Kamal Mishra, Kusal Pereira, Charith Hassaranga, merry-go-round in the top three at this World Cup. What was Santner Jayasuriya thinking? I just think, for me, and I'll open it up to you guys as well, and other people who come on. For me, Santner had the think tank, but he's the face of it. His name's on above the door, as it were. All these issues come back to just indecision, basically. I mean, to get to this point of a tournament, when you're battling to be in a semi-final, and to throw in a player that you've effectively discarded 6 months ago, I think is incredible. Like, you've got to be able to. That's the kind of move. If it comes off, you look like a genius, and you'll probably go around the world doing a speaking tour on it if it does come off. But if it doesn't come off, then you're in the position we're in now. I feel so bad for Hassaranga. I feel bad for Kamal Mishra. I feel bad for Kusal Pereira, because I assume whoever the new coach is, one of the first things they'll do is go and have a conversation with KJP and be like, mate, this is where you're at with my plans. And unless I'm not saying a coach should go and tell him he's retired, but I think you've got to say, you're probably not making it to the next World Cup. So maybe we just don't need you to be involved anymore. I don't know how you rebuild Kamal Mishra, because it's a total psychological job now. And I just don't know what Sri Lanka cricket's relationship is with Charith Hassaranga. And again, it goes back to, you can come on and you can blame Dustin Sharnaker to go, well, Deekshan had an over left. There was Kamindu had overs, Charith had overs, Samantha had overs. But I just don't know whether he on the pitch was empowered enough to go and stray away from the plan that was laid out, which was Shamir and Manishanka will bowl the kind of final two overs. I don't like. There's just so much mystery around the way the team runs, and you kind of can't. I don't think you can look at the way Sri Lanka played cricket the last 18 months or 2 years and go, well, this makes sense. What they've done now is going to make sense. Or when they did this on their tour of New Zealand last year, then this happened. We just have no idea. Every given game, it's like almost like a totally new side. It's like watching what was that show on Apple where they go into work and it's like every day they forget what happens outside. It's kind of like Severance. Yeah, it could be a bit like that with our side, right? It's like their heads are severed from the rest of it, and no one ever comes out and takes responsibility, right? They will do when they win, but it's when they lose. I suppose Santner's leaving now, so to a degree, that's him as close to take responsibility as is possible. I don't know if I'm just ranting now. Manik, we're going to let you go just because I want to get through other people. Thank you for joining us. Arsene, I'll try and put you back on again. Can you hear us?
Yep, I can hear you. How you guys doing?
Yeah, wicked. I'll bring Kai on as well because he's been waiting for ages. But Arsene, tell us how you're feeling about the game today.
Really bad. Like just really bad, man. Like, look, this match, the match against England, we should have won it. That's something I think we'll be kicking ourselves about. Was because how poor it was. Because you look at the after the first innings in the England match, we kind of had the match in our hands. Kind of seemed like a bit of an underpass score, and then we just capitulated. And we were actually winning the match up until, what, the 16th, 15th, 16th over. But I feel like we can actually, you know what? I'll go back on that. We lost the match at the toss. Any Sri Lanka knows that if you win the toss in Premadasa, you got to bat first. It just doesn't make first. Like, and then, chasing, whatever, like 168 to win. It just didn't make any sense. But the problem with Sri Lankan cricket is, and I've mentioned this before, probably like after the Asia Cup as well, that Sri Lankan cricket in
the Gremlins are in.
Structure is really weak. We only have club cricket, and then once you actually perform in club cricket, you play for international cricket. But you look at any other developed team, you play for your club, then you play for your state, and then the A team, and then the national team. So that needs to be completely changed in Sri Lanka. The fact and the reason why it's so disappointing is, as you guys mentioned as well, like we have good players. It's not like how it was like about 12 years ago post Sangakkara and Mahila's retirement. Like we have the players, but I feel like they're poorly managed. For me, I would also like to get a new coach. Somebody like a Jonathan Trott would be a very, very good pick for me. He's done wonders with Afghanistan cricket over the past 4 years, and I feel like he's that type of coach that would coach quite well with the team that we have as well. Also management, I feel like every single decision that we make is like that we do is a panic decision. In the sense that, like, if for example, look at this World Cup, like how many people batted in our top three, right? We had Crystal Mendes, we had Mishra, we had Crystal Pereira, and then Charita Sri Lanka as well, who just randomly just came in, right? But like there needs to be some sort of strategy. Like that power play that I saw in the first, in like when we were chasing was the worst power play I've ever seen in my life, right? And we just showed no intent. I feel like New Zealand got all the momentum they needed in those last 4 overs when McConchie and Santner were just belting it out of the park, and they sort of carried that into their bowling innings as well. But man, I'm too pissed off, man. To be honest, it was a disgusting performance. Yeah, I think Kai, I'm pretty sure you've got a lot more to say, so let you continue with that.
Go on, Kai.
Yeah, I guess like I've always said, it breaks down to three things. Cricket, you've got your like technical, tactical, and mental. So your mental is your kind of state of mind when you come into a game, how you think about a game, like confidence, and stuff like that. Like general, I think we all know, like sport, every sports person knows, anyone who plays sports kind of knows what I mean when I talk about mental state of mind. That's stuff like when you're taking catches, you could practice catch 100 times, but are you in the right state of mind to take a catch? Are you in the right state of mind to play the sport? Like, I don't know, it's a bit of more of a footballing reference, but everyone who knows Dele Alli knew that he kind of never, because of his background, never had the kind of mental kind of game to be able to keep playing and just have the drive to keep going. So that's one side of it. And then the technical is like the biomechanics, but more than that, also just like your general technique. So even if you're not like biomechanically perfect, how are you playing like your technical game, how you think about it. And then your tactical is thinking about stuff like matchups, like state of game, so shot choice and stuff like that. And today, or normally I'm big like hammering the home on the technical stuff, but like more long term. But today is just like tactical and mental. You know, like Weller looked like the only one who had the drive, and like I saw it from Chimera at points, and I know there's been a lot of criticism like that 16th over, that's where it all started. But at that point, Chimera had 2 for 9, and it should have been like 2 for 8. So, you know, you can say what you want, but he was bowling well at that point. It would have been like silly not to bring him back on. Like, imagine if Hemanta, who was going at 11s at that time, gets smashed for like a 20 run over, then what would people be saying? That like, oh, Chimera shouldn't have bowled that over. Chimera should have bowled that over. So, you know, that, but like it's more than that. It's a tactical decision to like bat first, bowl first, or field first on a wicket, where everyone knows it spins. And like I don't know what he was expecting. If he was expecting dew and the ball to like get a bit damp and it hard to grip and like the pitch will flatten out, but like the R Premadas has never ever done that and probably never will. And like it also just feels like the system's a bit broken, and like who we get through, we don't get big hitters through, it just feels broken, and I just feel a bit fed up. I'm a little bit drained, to be honest.
Yeah, I know I've said this a lot, and I'll never stop saying it, and we'll never stop Murali End and all that stuff. But I just don't think there's anybody at the top of Sri Lankan cricket. And it's not so you can't just get a coach in and go, right, 2 years' time, win us a World Cup. You need a much longer term view to this. You need somebody who's thinking 5 years ahead, 10 years ahead, 15 years ahead, and thinking, right, how are we going to win a World Cup? It's not like because that too much thinking around it, I think, is who are our 11 best players and how we get them on the pitch. And it's like, that's way too basic at this point. T20 cricket is moving so quickly. You know, we are at a stage now where some teams are able to get to 300 if they really want to, right? South Africa and India, I don't think people would be surprised if they, and even West Indies at this point as well.
England,
you know,
they're the only team who've actually done it against a non-associated nation.
Yeah, and England, right? So there's teams that can get to that. And us lot can't even chase down 160, 150 in our home conditions, right? So I just think our thinking is almost so primitive, like with it. I'm going to say something, and please don't take this out of context, but it's almost like the success that we've had in the past has kind of made people in Sri Lanka cricket kind of feel like all we need to do is kind of just turn up and be Sri Lankan. And because we've just got so much passion for the sport and we produce so many good 18-year-olds, that will always be competitive. Because I think we're at a stage now where unless something changes quite dramatically, we're 8th this time round. And actually, if you look back at the last 3 or 4 tournaments, that's a pretty good return for us, definitely compared to last time out. But we're at a stage now where easily there's associate sides who are much more, I think, much more forward thinking than we are, because they have to be. Right, they don't have the talent, as much talent to burn as we do, so they have to think a little bit more forward than we do. I think there's a world where we totally fall out of being competitive. You know, the one thing this tournament, our definite big takeaway should be, is we do not know how to play cricket in our own pitches. Like, there is no such thing as home advantage for Sri Lanka at the moment. I don't know what your take is on that, Anton. And also, I'd be interested to know how like, if they are to, you know, not Saladin's definitely leaving, so there's definitely going to be someone else come in. How much time as us Shred fans do we need to give them before we go, right, you've been into the job for 3 years now, show us something?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, it's hard to sum up or to give you an answer in a quick time frame. But I'll start with a point that came to my mind. I was fortunate enough of having to spend a bit of time with a guy called Owen Eastwood. I don't know if you've heard his name before. He's done a lot of work with the England football team. He's done work with Chelsea. Did a lot of work with the Ryder Cup, European Ryder Cup team. And basically, he's brought out a book. It's called Belonging. I think it's a great book. I'm punting his book a little bit out there. If you guys want to go read it, I think it's one of the best sports psychology books. So it's not really psychology. It's around culture. And basically what it says there around is that if you can imagine Sri Lanka's cricketing history and its generations that came before, if everyone is sort of standing in line and they're all interlocked, in their hands like this, and you've got your Ranatungas, and you can even go before that to your Jerry Wouters and, those days, and you move it along and as if the sun is shining upon you. The sun is now shining on, this group of players, and that's all that we have at this point. And our previous generations should not be breaking that lock and looking back down upon us and pointing fingers around, you should have been doing this, you should be doing that, and look at us, we're great. They're part of that chain, right? So they should be offering their strength. It's what makes Sri Lankan cricket so special, is because of the success that they've had before. All right. So, but I agree fully with you, Mark. I think we are a victim. Sri Lanka is a victim of its previous success, because people think that we should just, carry on winning. But unfortunately, it doesn't work like that, because, teams go through phases, and there's generational talents that don't come along for another, how many years did Australia weren't good after, their main team that was dominant for 14 years. They went through a bit of a dip for quite a number of years before they started becoming good again. So there's something that there culturally we have to seriously sit down, and I keep saying I have to always catch myself, but Sri Lanka seriously has to sit down and just speak to itself around, acknowledge the fact that you were successful in the 90s, even 70s, 80s, 90s, and the early 2000s, mid 2000s, with a group of cricketers that was fantastic. And yes, they should be given their place in folklore. But the sun is now not shining on those people anymore. The sun is now shining on this group of cricketers. And this group of cricketers needs all the help, all the support, from what Kai said, from a tactical, mental, and a physical perspective. That's where the focus should be on, not on what the previous generations have done. Because the game, as much as they don't want to hear it, the game is completely different to what they played. It's completely different. So you need a different way, a modern way of thinking around how we can get these guys better, right? And then the second point onto your question, Mark, is I think Sri Lanka needs to get really comfortable in losing for a couple of years to make this team better. I think Sri Lanka is so scared of losing, especially at home, which is one of the reasons why they keep preparing these so-called, conducive wickets for Sri Lanka, so that we keep winning series against, a touring West Indies team, or a touring England team, or this team or that team. Zimbabwe comes over, we'll beat them 3-0. And Afghanistan comes over, we'll brush the table with them, because we are so scared of losing, because either the coach doesn't want to lose his job, or the captain doesn't want to lose his job, or they just want to keep SLC happy and say, look, we are producing a product that keeps winning games of cricket in Sri Lanka. But as soon as we go into World Cup tournaments and we play against Sena countries, or we get in a plane and we leave the island, things fall apart. So from that perspective, I think if you're going to get someone in, or at least a group of people in that are going to walk this journey with this team, you're going to have to lose a lot first before you get better, because that's the only way that you're going to build. And once you start losing a lot of games of cricket, because I've been part of teams that have lost a hell of a lot. I went to Otago in New Zealand, and we finished last in every competition for 2 years running. But eventually in the third and fourth year, we got into finals and we started pushing for victories. But you need to, first of all, be given the time to do that, be given the support from the board, or from funding, or from logistics, or whatever it is that helps you become better. You need to be given that opportunity to do that. But more importantly, you need to make the players feel safe to push themselves, to fail, but also learn from their mistakes. And at the moment, I just feel the system is built around winning. And if we don't win, we'll just bring someone else in. There's no learning going on. There's no fostering of this generation of players to make them a little bit better, so that they can, look back on the previous generations and go, hey, we were good. I think the previous generations love sitting in the position where they are now, going, we were the greatest team of Sri Lanka, and look how crap you guys are right now. It's very easy saying that, but none of them want to be part of the fix it. It takes a strong man, a strong individual to come in and actually be part of the solution, not just always throwing comments and saying, change this, change that, change this, change that. So, I don't know if that answers your question, but I think from a fan base, if they are serious about getting better, you should start getting used to losing a lot of cricket, because that's going to happen. But that's the only place where growth happens. So
Anton,
go on, Kai.
I just had a question about kind of like, as a kind of like professional sports people, like how they go about it. Because for me, like, I'm amateurist cricketer, right? Play club level, but like I train like every opportunity I can, and like always think about training, always think about what I can do to be better. And I've always been a big believer. We always talk about talent on Murali End, and that's always the big thing. But I'm a big believer in hard work, and like the kind of idea that the person who works hardest is always like just as capable. I don't think like it might come easier to someone else, but like, and their ceiling might be higher, but like there is never a reality that we reach where someone actually does reach their ceiling because you can't work that hard. So I always wonder, like, either from like the player's perspective, whether like the burden comes on them, and obviously with franchise cricket now, the money to be made in it is definitely in like training, right, and working really hard because that's what pays well and that's what gets you franchise opportunities. But also on top of that, like the mental side, what support is there? What psychology is given to psychological support is given to players? What's in place there? Like
What, for the national team? You talk about the national team?
Yeah.
I think, I'm not sure who's the psychologist. I think we try to get someone on in my time. I don't know if there's one right now. I think psychologist is also quite a broad label to give someone, because it sort of tells you as a player or a coach that there's something wrong. That's why we have a psychologist in. So I like to think more around a performance psychologist. Sometimes you don't even have to go as far as a performance coach. You can get someone in like a player of a ilk of Sanath, or a player of ilk like a Mahela or Sanga, who can come and mentor a team. Yes, I'm all for that. Mentorship is like having a guy who's, you know, like a psychologist who you can talk to, who's been through those things, who's been through the scrutiny, who knows what it's like to feel under pressure. How do they go about their game and that sort of stuff. So there's a big difference between being a mentor and being a coach. A coach is a guy who develops players, who looks at you and sits you down and says, Kai, okay, these are your strengths, these are your weaknesses, this is how we're going to make your strengths even stronger. This is how we're going to work on your weaknesses. And in 5 years' time, this is the role that I see you playing for the side. And here's the blueprint of how we're going to get there. That is what a coach does. Okay. And sometimes I feel with bringing ex-players in, and I'm not having a go at any of the current people. It's just my experience of having been in different parts of the world, is that we get muddled up between bringing in a mentor, but with a coaching label, and he gets given coaching responsibilities, and the guy doesn't know how to coach, because coaching is an art. It's not a science. There's a difference between developing a player and telling a player, this is what I did 40 years ago and how to score runs. There's a huge difference around that. And I think that's where Sri Lanka is slightly missing the boat when it comes to that.
Is there anything around like professional psychologists, not necessarily just as like a coach or like a manager, but like for someone for the players to speak to, like almost like a therapist role?
Look, again, I think they were trying to put something into place when I was there. I'm not sure what it is now. Again, you can only imagine the red tape and protocols that they have to go through in order who they're going to get in that Sri Lanka cricket trusts, you know, to speak to those players, and do those players trust this person, you know, to tell all their fears and vulnerabilities too, right? So it is a tough situation to be in for a lot of people, because I'm not sure that trust is there just quite yet. Another thing that I think is worth mentioning, and I know this for a fact, is that Sri Lanka Cricket is one of the only boards, I think, together with Bangladesh, that don't have a players union. In other words, we've got no representatives for the players. Sri Lanka Cricket basically owns the playing group, which I think is also a tough situation for the players to be in, because you know, these guys they're not going to stand up and say, hey, we don't agree with the fact that we are playing and training 7 days a week. We don't have any breaks, because Sri Lanka Cricket will just tell them, listen, keep your mouth shut. We'll get rid of you. We'll pick someone else, you know? So I think we really have to, especially with the amount of money that's at stake, the contracts that are at stake, we really need to get a little bit professional around that and start setting up some sort of union that can separate, in a good way, separate and shield the players from Sri Lanka Cricket, so that those two entities can actually start working together for once, and not, you know, being pushed around and being forced to do stuff. So I think, you know, again, you know, these are just my thoughts. Whether that's going to happen or not, I'm not sure. Or whether they've tried that in the past, I think they have, but for some reason it fell through. But those are sort of, you know, places that I think Sri Lanka is falling short badly. Because a lot of countries have that in place, and it actually helps a hell of a lot, because it gives the players a place to voice their opinions and make themselves heard, and actually gives them a little bit of buy-in to say, hey, this is the way we want to play the game. This is where we see ourselves going. We want to bring this into place. Give us an indoor center. Give us this. Give us that. And if you can give us that, they've actually got a stake in where the game is also going. And I think that is a huge incentive as a player to continue growing and being better, because you actually own part of it. So yeah.
Kai, thank you for joining us. I'll keep you on. But Kulinu, I think you'll be the last caller of the day. We've been going on for nearly 2 hours. I imagine you were up at the crack of dawn in the East Coast, to watch the game today. And I imagine, like me, you're quite disappointed by it all.
Oh, for sure. Thanks, Mark and Anton, for having this platform. Even for an hour and a bit, for us to come and have a chat. Much appreciated, because you feel like you're, in need of, getting things out of your chest, right? I feel like 2 big opportunities lost, right? At home, at a World Cup. I feel like we had the opposition down, and then we let them back in. I know we've discussed a lot of the systemic issues, and they are also valid, and they need to be fixed in the longer term. And I have so many thoughts, but I don't want to get into it because much of that has been already discussed today. But I feel like at the top, it's the national team, the squad that's been selected, the coaching group, the analysts, whoever that's there. Even with issues, I felt like we could have done a little better. Yes, we had injuries, we had chopping and changing at the top of the order. But even then, I felt like the team themselves and also the fans who turned up, especially at the stadiums themselves, deserved a lot better, because if you really think about it, the likes of Italy, Netherlands, Namibia, or whoever else, Nepal, they don't get to play World Cups and against top sides often, and it's totally alien and foreign conditions to them. They come in and turn up and compete. So now it looks like the Australia game is like the aberration, right? I'm not going to take away anything from the good performances either, just because in some other games we performed badly. But if you really think about it, just getting bowled out like this in 2 games, it's a weak performance. That's not up to the standards that even the team that had these kind of systemic issues, the injuries, the selection issues, are expected to perform. I would say yes, we acknowledge that. I even though we hope as fans that we acknowledge that there were certain deficiencies when even in the preparation when it coming to the World Cup, and obviously I will be obviously lying if I said that we'll be winning the World Cup or going into the final or even the semi-finals. But I expected a better showing in the Super 8s, because a crunch time, can we compete at least? Maybe not get into the semis. Let's say we got out in the net run rate from missing out on the semi-finals, but competed against these 3 teams and made sure that the last game that we're going into is not a dead rubber. So I feel like even with all the issues, we underperformed, and that's incredibly disappointing. And we became the first team to get knocked out, right? And I'm okay if we were completely outplayed, and then we can talk about, okay, we are really off the pace in terms of T20 cricket. Let's say the game like West Indies, Zimbabwe, we get hammered for 250 and we try and chasing it in India, for example. Now we're at home. This is again the dilemma, right? Like, we made pitches to suit us, but then we can't play on them also. So which means like the tables have turned, right? Like, this is the type of game that we used to do to teams like New Zealand and England, especially like the non sort of Asian teams. Not that now the modern game has changed where those players play in the IPL and all that, and they perform way better in the subcontinent. But nonetheless, this is the type of game that we used to roll over oppositions like this. And even with the past sort of frailties, or even the preparations, even the past World Cups, we used to lift our game. We used to get motivated by the crowd. By the end, the crowd was chanting New Zealand, which I didn't appreciate, but I can understand. In that sense, I wanted to watch the double header tomorrow with a bit more, excitement, because Sri Lanka was still in the World Cup.
Yeah.
But it's not the case anymore. Yeah.
Savina's written in that I always, said road time had positivity. I think, being a fan, it's about the moments that they create, right? That you get as a fan. Every fan group has different moments that are amazing. When I was watching it, they were showing all the kids in the stands there. I actually felt really bad. I was watching it with my friend DJ Nero. He'll probably be watching. He'll probably be listening or watching this now. And I was saying, I was really lucky that I was those kids' age. I was 10 years old when they won the World Cup in '96, right? I saw all the best moments of it, and I felt like what it was really like for seeing that Grand Sri Lanka side win. And I know that we've still got that in us. And it's like, even like in a way, if we'd lost today in a super over or got really close, it wouldn't have felt as bad because you'll feel proud of like sticking in the fight and staying in it. It's just something with the way it all went down today. Look, I always do, we're very unlikely to win the World Cup. I can tell that we just weren't at it. However, I just think the talent is still there. And I know how good we all feel when we wake up the next day morning. Like, I've got an actual Australian wife and she doesn't care about cricket, but I've been telling her so much about the damage that Pathum Nissanka has done to her nation in the last week. And it's just, all like that is the joy of sport, right? I'm, unlike Kai or Anton, I'm not getting anywhere near any professional sports teams, right? The joy is in the win. And I just, what I feel so sad about is I still think all the ingredients are there. We're just baking the cake wrong. And we all know what we're doing wrong. We all know what's going on with the method of it, and it's all fixable, except that this was the home World Cup. This is, I was in Sri Lanka quite recently, and I've been there a lot last year or so. And for me, and I thought Colombo was buzzing when I was there over Christmas, more than I've ever seen it buzzing. I think the whole place is thriving. I think Sri Lankans are actually in a moment now where we can actually just enjoy living and being Sri Lankan, which, the last 40, 50 years is quite quite an achievement in itself. And I just thought a good World Cup would have really been awesome for all of us. But, it wasn't to be. We'll lick our wounds. Much worse things have happened to us. And hopefully we'll learn from these mistakes. I mean, I'm not overly optimistic we will, but there's hope that we might. And we kind of push on from there. That's all we can hope for at this point, right, guys?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think at the same time, I think it's important for us, feel disappointed. As a fan base, you've got every right to feel that. But at the same time, you've got to try and find a spot in your heart to put yourself in the player's perspective and in issues and think about how they're feeling at this point in time, because I can tell you that change room is not a nice place to be in at this point in time, especially if some ex-playing legends have want to voice a few of their opinions. It could be a long night for them in that change room to listen to how badly they've done. And unfortunately, in my opinion, I don't think it's fully on their plate, even though they're the ones that are representing the country and the team out in the field. But somewhere along the line, maybe tomorrow, just have a think about where these players are and how they are thinking about it as well. And as much as we support the team, we should also be supporting the guys who play for them. And there have been some great moments in this World Cup. Let's not forget about that. We've been rocked with injuries. A couple of things haven't gone our way luck-wise. And I don't know if some of you guys have listened to Faf du Plessis talk on his thing. I think it's called Time Out on Crick Info or whatever. And he said, being part of, World Cups and tournament play, you need a lot of luck. You don't need injuries, right? And you need a hell of a lot of execution. Now, we saw a lot of execution from a lot of bowlers, especially. I think our bowling unit stood up. So I think we can really fly a flag high when it comes to that. Unfortunately, we've been rocked with injuries and we got a few tactical things wrong, and that's honestly where the tournament lies. Yeah, I think that game against England is going to haunt a lot of people going forward, because that's the game we should have won. And that would have given us 2 bites of the cherry, getting into the semi-final. So, there's a lot of things to feel good and positive about. However, tonight's loss does put a bit of a dent in that, absolutely. But I think there's a lot of things to build upon, Mark. not to rebuild, to build upon.
Building.
And hopefully Sri Lanka cricket gets a few people in, because I don't think it's going to be one guy. I think they need a real good quality core of coaches and leadership around that team that's going to take the side moving forward, because the talent is there. Every single overseas coach that I've spoken to, I've been there in my time for 3 years. Every single guy that's been part of that group is amazed and absolutely gobsmacked by the amount of talent that is coming through the system, and also the amount of talent that is in that squad right now. The question is, how do we get that out of them? How do we set themselves up for consistency in not just their home conditions, but in foreign conditions? And how do we set them up for longevity? Because that's all we want for as a fan base. And that, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending the way you look at it, takes a village to do, not just one person. So I hope they start making some good decisions based around that.
Absolutely. Guys, should we leave it there for tonight? Murali End will be back tomorrow, though, because we are, as soon as this is done, I'm going to start watching whatever's left of the women's third ODI against the West Indian side. They've already won that series, so I'm going to try and do kind of review of what's been going on there, because, you know, obviously at Murali End, we treat both sides equally, and I'm desperately feel like I need to apologise to the women's team because we haven't done these lives afterwards, but we'll get back onto that. And then the men's side are going, well, they've got a game on Saturday against Pakistan, so we'll be live after that. And then we'll be in preparation for the Afghanistan tour. And there's a Women's World Cup this year as well. I know it feels like there was only a Women's World Cup a few months ago. That's in June in the UK. I think that's going on the same time as a men's football World Cup. So I have no idea how I'll be able to be across both, but I will try my best to do that. We will try our best to do that. We're trying to get Estelle over to the UK so that she can be at all the games, because I'm not sure the women can do a World Cup game if she's not there in the stands. So hopefully, and also if you're in the UK, I know Kai and a few other people who watch this show regularly that we're going to be trying to do a few Murali End events post the matches as well, around where the women are playing. I think it's Birmingham, Bristol, Southampton, and London, I think, but I need to have a look at that. So, you know, do follow us on all our socials. Keep an eye on what we're doing, because I like to think the Murali End, look, we all wanted Sri Lanka to win it. Sadly, that's not going to happen this year, but we are a community. We grow together. We have a place to talk through these tragedies, which is really important, and these stressful moments for us. Thanks everyone who's been watching. Thanks everyone who's contributed. Thanks a lot, Kalunu, Kai. Thanks, Anton. Your insights absolutely incredible. We'll be back again, hopefully sometime tomorrow. See you then. Bye.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
It's the Murali End, you're in the place to be. Analyze the players and the team. Keep a great company in the stream. It's a Murali End. Welcome to the show. We're here when you're high. We're here when you're low. Some days you're happy, some days you wanna when happy it's we when man it's them. It's the same place, Murali End. Sri Lanka cricket we gon' represent. So tell a friend.